Hey YouTube, how's it going? I'm here to make another video, and this one is about late diagnosis. Now, I got the idea for this video a few months ago. I was visiting my sister and she says, "Oh, Paul, I know somebody who also has ASD. You should talk to them." So I was talking to him and mostly just asking about, what was it like when you found out? How did you deal with it? What did it feel like? And he was diagnosed when he was 6, and he found it incredibly difficult to imagine what it would be like to not have a diagnosis when you're a kid, to have a diagnosis instead of at 7, at 37. And I've seen a lot of videos like should you get a diagnosis, what the process is, but I want to talk about what does it feel like to have a diagnosis at 37 years old instead of 6 or 7, like most people have to. So I've known since I was a little kid that I was quite different from everyone else. The kids at school used to call me weird or strange. And when I was 6 years old, I was having a lot of trouble in school, just difficulty paying attention, doing the classwork, playing along with kids. And they did testing, and since this was the 1980s, they misdiagnosed me with attention deficit disorder. And I remember I did medication for about 3 years, but it didn't really do anything. Even my dad thought that the whole thing was completely incorrect. And so by the time I was 13, I really knew I was different, but I just assumed I was just different, unique snowflake, whatever you want to call it. So I didn't think much of it other than I knew I was different from everyone else. And how I got my late diagnosis was actually my girlfriend at the time, who was my current wife. She sat me down one day and said, "Paul, I think you're this," and laid it out for me. Apparently she'd done the research and taken the time. And at first it was a little, like the feeling I had was more of a confusion, but also a curiosity at the same time. Like I couldn't quite see how this could be true, but I wanted to be convinced one way or the other. And she laid it all out, and the more she talked to me, the more that confusion started to fade away and the curiosity really started to peak. And I just wanted to know more. And that's basically what the feeling was. I wanted to know more about this. I remember going to bed that night or trying to go to sleep that night and just wanting to get on my computer the next morning and just look into this. And that's what I did for the next few days. I just got on the computer and just researched the hell out of it. And the more I read, the more lectures I saw, it's just made so much sense to me. And so I had to go through a stupid step. I had to make an appointment with my doctor, to make an appointment to see a specialist, and then I had to do several appointments with a specialist to get a diagnosis. And at first they were like, "Oh, we want to rule other things out." So they took this test for like bipolar and ADHD and a bunch of other behavioral things first, because they said it would be highly unlikely that I would make it this far without a diagnosis of ASD, high functioning autism, because I seem to be pretty together. I had my own place, paid bills, had a job. So how could it be? Anyway, so I went through the whole tests, and I remember it was September 27th when I finally got my results. So I went in for my final appointment. All the testing had been done. And so we were talking about it. And then she asked me an interesting question. She's like, "Do you really believe that you have ASD?" And I was like, "Yeah, it just makes sense." And so after talking a little more, she's like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure you do." And the feeling when she said those words it was a relief. Just like all those years, I had thought something was wrong with me, because I'd seen like my friends and my family there, they could go to parties or to bars or could talk to people and just they'd become friends like instantly. I could never do that. And all other weird things like my phases, my special interests. That's what my mom and my sister used to call them. And just to hear that you're not weird, you're not broken, that this is something who you are. And I remember just feeling this relief. It was kind of a sad relief at the same time. I don't know how to describe the feeling, but it was just this sadness that, like, I know this now, and something like that. So I remember just mostly it was just relief and just like just to know that I'd done all this research and I was right. And it was a good relief. It was a good feeling for a while, and then it turned into anger. Not anger at anyone in particular, but there was just this anger that it was sort of where the sadness was coming from. That, you know, why couldn't somebody have found this out sooner? Why couldn't a dumb doctor from 1988, or any of my teachers, or I mean, somebody I had to run into must have had the idea that, oh, you know, you could be, but no one ever said anything. I just wish I would have known, because teen years are particularly unpleasant, and to be a teenager with ASD and not know it was an extra flavor of unpleasant. So yeah, just I wish I would have known. And yeah, there was anger, but then it was like this mixture. Then I feel like relieved and also curious as I started going back through all my old memories. It's like, oh, that makes sense. That's why I said this. That's why they did this. That's why I've been, just there was a lot of like re-exploration of my own feelings and memories. That's why I felt that way when this happened. And so it was a very up and down process between, no understanding something that you thought you understood, but now you understood different, like a different facet of your own life, and then anger of why didn't anyone ever catch this? Why couldn't have anyone have ever told me? And that went back for a while. Also more curiosity. I mean, I devoured every single lecture and audiobook on Aspergers and ASD that I could. And the more I knew, I kind of started to get a feeling of where my strengths were, where my weaknesses were. And that was it. And at this point in time, it's been almost 8 months since my diagnosis, and I'm actually at a pretty good level. Just the anger is gone, the curiosity is gone, but yeah, that's what it felt like: relief and curiosity, anger. But I'm glad I know. I would much rather know. I wish I would have known sooner. So if any of you are curious, or you think somebody has ASD or Asperger's, and you're like, should I tell them? I'm worried they'll be upset. Or just tell them. Trust me, they want to know. They're not going to be upset or think that, oh, they're insulting me, or I don't know what people think they would think, and the reason they wouldn't tell them. But if you think somebody has it, tell them. Sit them down, have all the information ready so you can back up your statement, but definitely tell them, because they're going to want to know. And that's it. So stay safe out there, guys.